Officer Tan, what were you doing in the moments leading up to the discharge of your firearm?
I was in pursuit of a suspect. Ryan and I were
Officer Doheny.
Officer Doheny and I were following a suspect through the hall when he turned the corner.
Which corner?
How are you feeling?
Oh, no.
I think it was the west end of the hall.
You think? Well, which end was it, Officer Tan?
Stay with me. How did this happen?
It was the west end of the hall.
And then what?
The suspect turned the corner, and I pulled out my firearm.
Explain to our viewers what A Shot Through the Wall is about.
It's about a young Chinese-American cop in New York City who is responsible for accidentally shooting and killing an innocent Black man through a wall. And the story is about everything that follows after that.
In A Shot Through the Wall, I play the police captain and actually the commanding officer of Officer Mike Tan, and the father of Candace Walker, who is the fiance of Mike Tan. So there are intermingled relationships, both professional and personal, in this film for these characters.
My name is Lynn Chen, and I play Grace, who is the sister of Mike in the movie, who is our star.
So I understand that Aimee wrote the screenplay based off an incident that happened in New York City. I believe it was in 2014. I would love to know, what sort of research you did in regards to that incident and how that helped you play Mike.
So then it's loosely based on, so it's to say inspired by. We wanted to make that different because we didn't want it to actually, we take a lot of narrative liberties with the story so we can talk about the issues more clearly. But as far as the research, there's so much to do because we knew that it was a very sensitive and very timely topic. First thing was we had to understand that case very well. And so one thing that I did was I flew out to New York a little bit early, a couple of weeks early, so I could talk to the people in New York on the street, in bars, just see what they were saying about that case. An important aspect to me was this is a Chinese American kid who grew up in Brooklyn. And I wanted to understand what it was like growing up like that. And so then I spent a couple of weeks in Brooklyn and Manhattan, just kind of wandering the streets. There's a very specific area of Brooklyn called Bay Ridge. That is like a very Chinese area. And it's kind of bizarre. It's like you wouldn't be able to recognize it as New York. So I spent a lot of time just understanding the mindset of somebody who would grow up in New York. And the last thing that I did actually was and it wasn't necessarily for this film, but one thing that I had done before was I had applied to the LAPD.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah. I knew that I was going to, eventually play a police officer. And one of the things that I like to do as an actor is I want to live the things that I'm playing as much as possible. I don't want it to just be another story for the sake of a story. I want it to reflect real life.
I'm going to try to dig into my memory bank a little bit, but I remember having, I wouldn't say there were reservations, but I was nervous because even though this was a topic that was important to me, it still wasn't something that was spoken about outside of your safe circles, your personal safe circles. It was sort of an understanding that if you were going to bring this up, you're going to rock the boat. And we're not ready quite yet to do that. At least, when we were filming this or right before we were about to film this, there was like a piece of me that was like, oh, what are my Black friends going to think? What are my Asian friends going to think? This is heavy and this is important. And I don't want to just be like, I'm just playing a character and just gloss over it. I want to really understand what's happening here and what Aimee's point of view is and all that, because it's so complicated.
Well, I think that's what Aimee long had in mind, to highlight the complexity of an issue that impacts our nation and often the world, but certainly America. Racism can't be simplified and put it into just black and white. No. Racism has tentacles. Racism has facets, and racism goes far and wide in many cultures. And there are some crossroads between African American communities and Asian American communities when it comes to being discriminated against.
Shot Through the Wall is currently playing in theaters and on VOD.
I don't think so.
How does the defendant plead?
I love you. I don't want you going to jail.
Just hanging them out to dry.
You don't want to be looking over your shoulder wherever you go.
What's going on?
So you have no idea which side of the hallway you were on, when you pulled your firearm, or when you called for the suspect to stop.
You can't expect them to know you like I do.
Do you have any idea how a mother feels to lose a son?